You're watching Progressively Older. I'm Lincoln Eaton, call me Link, and I'm the host of Progressively Older. I had to do this video. I wasn't planning on doing another video this quickly, but when something this unbelievable happens in our nation's history, and your whole channel is about being a progressive that's getting older, you have to address it. Older progressives have a place in this conversation. We have some perspective. We've lived through some things. We've seen some things. And what we saw yesterday was, at least for this progressive, one of the most extraordinary moments in the history of our country. That's not hyperbole. That's not overstatement. That's the truth. This is shocking, and it's disgusting, and it was more horrible than what I imagined was going to happen. Stay tuned toward the end of this video. I'll have a link to a previous video of mine that predicts what was going to happen yesterday, and it was pretty spot on. But even I didn't see this extraordinary desecration of our country unfolding on the airwaves. This was unbelievable. This is something we can never forget. This is something that we have to remember as long as we live, and make sure that the kids remember it as long as they live, so it's never repeated. This is unforgivable. President Trump, this is unforgivable. It's not something you should be forgiven for. It's not something that should be ignored. We're going to talk about that. Trump got exactly what he wanted yesterday. He had been calling out his followers, his base, for weeks, calling them to D.C., calling them to January 6th, calling them to be the pushback against the peaceful transition of power that is a hallmark of American democracy. He was calling them to attack. He had help. He had others that were calling them too. You'll see in the video that I linked to a little bit later some of the other calls for violence that had been out there. And there were people in the government that were saying that this was the groundwork for civil war. That verbiage had actually been used by legislators in our country. Once they got there, he met them there. And he called for them to march down to the Capitol building. He said he'd lead them, but of course that was a lie. He doesn't have that kind of courage. It might have made a difference, but he doesn't make a difference. He hid inside the White House while he sent his army to the Capitol, where they gradually on the way got themselves into a frothing rage. And when they got there, it just escalated and escalated. They pushed into the Capitol. We all know what they did. The ransacking, the theft, the looting, the destruction, and ultimately resulting in at least one of their deaths at the hands of a law enforcement officer. When it was over, he didn't want to actually address the nation about this at all. He had to be cajoled, wheedled into making any kind of a statement at all. And when he did, it was disgusting. He told them to go home, that we were the party of law and order, and we had to respect our peace officers. And he said he loved them, and he understood that in the face of the steal of this election that he had won by a grand margin, an overwhelming margin in reality, in Trump world reality, But even in the face of that, they needed to go home now and not cause the mayhem that had already been caused by him. He had incited them to riot and then told them he loved them and sent them home after doing their job. These people will be on camera. They've already started identifying some of the ludicrous cretins that infected the Capitol yesterday. They'll be rounded up one by one. They will be arrested. I have great confidence of that. Some people don't believe it'll happen. It will happen. This is another reason why Trump should be removed, so he doesn't have the opportunity to pardon them after the fact. But they will be rounded up. But he continues the lie and continues. His address to the nation was to really instigate more violence by continuing the lie. You'll see more violence. This was day one. Stay tuned. There's more coming. You can't help but think, where the heck was the security? Now, again, on my previous video, I predicted this. I predicted the chaos that would happen in D.C. yesterday. And who am I? I'm a nobody with a brand new YouTube channel, desperately trying to be heard. I'm no one. And yet, I predicted it, easily predicted, that this would be chaos. Where was security? The Capitol ground forces were incapable of handling the kind of attack that happened from within. Domestic terrorism on a fairly large scale. They were unprepared to do it. And in some cases, from the looks of things, they were unwilling to do it, opening up gates and allowing people to enter the area with no pushback. There was something odd going on there. I'm not ready to make any proclamations about what exactly happened. I've heard talk of selfies being taken by law enforcement officers with the demonstrators. If that's true, these people should never work in law enforcement again. They should be in prison. But I have not seen that, so I can't confirm that, nor can I deny it. But I have read the rumors, and at this point, that's all they are. But it was completely inadequate. The amount of force available at the Capitol was completely inadequate for the job, especially for what even in a nobody idiot like myself could easily predict. This didn't come from nowhere. There was plenty of foreknowledge that this was coming. One of the things that I could not help but ruminate on as I watched this happen, in 1995, Louis Farrakhan organized a 1 million man march. The number of people that were there, that's an argument, but the most likely accurate number was somewhere around 830,000, give or take 20% by an estimate by a Boston University study on that number. But it was a ton of people. There were a lot of proud black men in D.C. that day. And if Louis Farrakhan had called for them to walk on the Capitol, he undoubtedly would have had the courage to walk with them. But if he had done that, and they had reached the Capitol, and they had tried to breach the Capitol, underneath the tundra, it would be littered with body bags. There would be human flotsam and jetsam on the floors of the Capitol building and on the stairs leading up to them. they would have, it would have been a massacre, and it wouldn't, and no one would have had a second thought about it. And perhaps they shouldn't, nor should they have yesterday. This was an attack on the United States, an attempted coup, an insurrection against the United States of America. That's what happened yesterday. If it had been the Million Man March, the videos would have looked vastly different. That's really what was on the march yesterday. This is what's at stake for these people. America going brown, God forbid. That's what they see, and that's what they're reacting to. The rest of it is noise. We saw lots of pictures of these children in the chamber and in the offices of our legislators. They look like kids. They look like they're getting away with something. They look like, it looks like a streaking party in college. It's pathetic. These are children with a child's mind and a child's understanding of what this country is about and what it really means. The Second Amendment is not the be-all and end-all of the rights that this country aspires to. It's just not. This is a much bigger experiment, and we're failing it. We're failing it in a massive way. Today, there's joy in MAGA land. They are hooting and howling about their success, about the great accomplishments they made on January 6th, 2021. High fives all around, boys. We made it. We brought the Confederate flag to the state capitol. They didn't do that in 1860. Wow, look at us. Aren't we something? That's what's going on out there. These people have to be tracked down and jailed with impunity. Nothing can be held back in trying to bring these people to justice. They need to be an example. If this does not happen, it's a license. This will just continue and grow and expand. This has to stop, and it's got to stop now. Donald Trump called these people to an insurrection. This was his baby. He incited to riot. These are treasonous accusations. These are accusations of treason against him by me, and I stand by it. The treason that he's committed throughout his entire presidency has been ongoing and thorough. He committed treason in supporting everything Russia could have possibly hoped could happen in this country in the last 4 years. He's granted license to them, left things open to them, and supported them in every way possible. It sure seems like a payoff to me. Maybe they have something on him. Maybe he's getting something from them. But regardless, the license given to Russia under this administration is stunning. Now he's given the same kind of license to domestic terrorists. He has lied to them. He has the support of media for the lies has made it ubiquitous. These lies are everywhere, and these people are just chomping at them, at these lies, giving them an excuse to support white America. And that's really what they're doing. The rest of it, the rest of the issues, these are not people who are marching over economic issues. Don't be silly. They haven't thought about economics in their entire lives. This is about the browning of America. And he has given them license, and he should be held to account and be charged with treason. Treason has a penalty of death. Now, I'm against the death penalty, and I will state that repeatedly. I'm completely against it. We're one of the few countries in the world that still have this archaic punishment that is, it has no place in our country. But it is the penalty. That's not a reason for him not to be charged with this crime. The crime was there. What do we have for a punishment instead? He lost Twitter for half a day. Well, that was originally. Then he got the loss of privileges for a whole day on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Facebook has extended their ban for the president through the rest of his presidency so that he cannot continue to foment violence against the United States of America. Tepid kudos to Mark Zuckerberg, but this is the punishment. This is where it stops. You get your phone taken away from you for a day or a week or two. This is what you do to a high school kid who took the car without asking. This is the punishment for the President of the United States attacking his own country? Really, people? This is impossible. This can't happen. This is a continuation of a historical narrative in the United States. Back in the late 1850s, Bully Brooks, senator from South Carolina, almost beat Charles Sumner, the senator from Massachusetts, to death on the floor of the Senate. On the floor of the Senate. He beat him with his cane until he broke his cane over Charles Sumner's head. Sumner almost died. Took 3 years for him to recuperate. Massachusetts legislation did not fill the seat, leaving it empty as a reminder for the brutality of Bully Brooks. 3 years later, Charles Sumner returned to the Senate. In the 1920s, the Ku Klux Klan became a force in America. Open, courted, while they murdered people, extorted people, terrorized people because they couldn't get their way. Bully Brooks beat Charles Sumner because he couldn't get his way through argument. The Ku Klux Klan lynched people because they couldn't get their way through argument. That's how you get your way in the United States. That's how you get your way in a democracy. You make your case. Well, when they can't, they throw temper tantrums and kill people. And now you're seeing that in the Proud Boys, the 3%ers. They're ready, and they're willing. And in some cases, they're able. They're a real threat to the United States of America. Secretary Rice, back under Obama, suggested that white supremacy was the greatest threat to the United States. It was greater than external terrorism. She was vilified at that time. She got crushed in the media. She had to leave her position. She resigned ostensibly for other purposes, but the fact was she had crossed a line that no one could accept. She was right. She always was right. She was right then, and she's definitely right now. This patriot movement, it's a white supremacy movement. You can dress it up any way you like, and that's what it's about. Nothing will change for the cult. They're out there. They're planning. They're putting things together. They've been planning. They've been executing. Governor Whitmer was at risk. She was at real risk. The plan had been formulated. It had been scheduled. It was in go mode. Governor Whitmer could have been kidnapped, tried, and executed by these lunatics. And they're lunatics, people. They are lunatics. They have completely lost their minds into this is a very much a cult psychology. Trump is the cult leader. These people have to be prosecuted. They have to be jailed. They have to have their comeuppance. And Trump does too. This shouldn't be anything that is remotely controversial. It shouldn't be controversial among us, not just progressives, but us, the American people. This should not be a controversy. This needs to be punished. We might have arguments. We may disagree over what those punishments might be, but the idea that there's nothing to punish is insanity. It's absolutely crazy. And I think very few, except that MAGA land, very few deny it. This shouldn't be a matter of controversy in Congress. We should be unified in wanting to call out the President of the United States for the anti-American acts that he has perpetrated against this country. Inexcusable. Never to forget it. This is never going to be forgotten. They're going to study this. This is going to be a moment, a critical moment in United States history where things could have gone in a different direction. What's the direction it's going to go in, folks? It's up to us. It's up to you and me. It's up to what we demand of our representatives. This is a moment that will never be forgotten in the history of our country. Where are you going to be? It's a wake-up call. Interestingly, I get the feed from the president's Twitter account. I can't read it for very long. It's just too disturbing that there are this many incredibly stupid people on the planet, let alone in our country. But I read it after this debacle yesterday, before it was shut down. And what was interesting was that this apparently had been a line that he'd crossed for a lot of people. There were always a few, "Oh, Mr. President, you are an evil scoundrel," Twitters or responses on that account. The occasional one, the outlier. For the most part, it was complete fealty, love abounding for this god of a president. Today, reading it, it was almost 50-50. Maybe not quite that, but approaching it. Of people that were disgusted, that were appalled by what had happened. Amazingly, there were still at least 50%, probably more, supporters on there, singing his praises. But something had turned. A switch had flipped for a bunch of people. And suddenly they had seen something they'd never seen before in him. That's hope. That's hope for us all. We had an amazing day yesterday in 2 new senators from Georgia coming to the Capitol. There's hope. There are hopeful signs out there, but we can't be complacent with those signs. We have to take that opportunity and expand it and wake up, America. This has been Progressively Old.